Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sharon Spurlock with the Family Support Team here at the St. Louis Arc. We've got two amazing guests from our own employment team who are here to talk to us about employment. You may or may not know it's National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And so we think that's important. We want you to be able to ask questions about employment and learn about why employment is important for almost everybody. And what I'd like you guys to do is introduce yourselves and talk about your role at the ARC and a little bit about you. How did you get here? So Taylor, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Hartman, and I am one of the Assistant Directors of Employment Services at the St. Louis Arc. So I oversee our pre-employment training program, our summer programs, which are SWEP and STEP, and I also oversee our social skills classes, which include Motivation Monday, engagement activities, Skills Plus, Skills to Pay the Bills, and Teach Us Something Good. Our virtual social skills classes that we now offer via Zoom. I've been at the ARC about 7.5 years. I started out in the leisure department. I worked the summer program, Neighborhood Experiences. And once that summer was completed, I just knew I wanted to find and continue my employment here. So I then started working in the employment department as a job coach on the coaching and retention side of things. And then I moved over to pre-employment and moved on from there. So happy to be here and happy to talk with you all about our employment services today.
Fabulous. And Sandy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sandy Mulligan, and I am one of the two coordinators of coaching and retention. I started out with St. Louis Arc a little under 3 years ago, actually. I was thinking about that earlier. I can't believe all that time has passed. And basically, I was just looking for a career change where I could also apply my education skills. So I was a teacher before this position. So I came here and the rest has been history. And I am also very happy to be here.
I'm so excited to hear you've got a teaching background. I think that's one of the things that's often so challenging for us. We bring in employees with all kinds of backgrounds, but there's a real talent to being able to teach somebody what they need to know to be successful. So that's a really cool skill set to bring to the table. Why should we care? Why is employment important in a person's life?
Yeah, so I can take it away, and Sandy, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on it too. As I mentioned, I oversee our summer programs and pre-employment. So typically those are programs that start out the rest of a person's employment journey. You know, summer programs are oftentimes a person's first job. So I highly encourage and recommend talking with teachers about how to get involved with summer programs. SWEP is in St. Louis County and STEP is in St. Charles County. Both of those just are a really great stepping stone to prepare us for what employment looks like in the future. To answer your question as far as why is it important, I know that differs depending on the person, but for many of us, having a job and being included in the community makes us feel productive and have a purpose and be included. So all those intangible feelings. And not only that, we can then support ourselves and support our goals. So same for individuals that we support. We want to help, empower and focus on what goals we can get to and how employment can get us there, because oftentimes employment's that key to getting to and doing the things that we want to do. So not only the intangible, but then also just actually being able to support yourself and support the lifestyle that you want. It can all work through employment. And so with pre-employment as well, we oftentimes will support individuals who've had a job already and maybe it hasn't gone so successfully. So then they come to pre-employment, we brush up on those skills. So I think another just thing to think about is that employment is not necessarily like the end all be all. We don't, just land a job and then we're good forever. There's lots of different avenues and routes that people take. And, Sharon, we've talked a few times about our first jobs, second jobs, thirds, we all start somewhere. So We remind individuals that as well with our programs, that we are looking for a job to add experience and add to a resume. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person's forever job unless they want it to be.
I think, Taylor, since you're talking about pre-employment, let's talk a little bit more about the services that you oversee. When people are wanting to explore jobs as teenagers and young adults, when they're building skill sets, what are the services specifically that we're able to offer people?
Summer programs that I've mentioned, they are for individuals who are 16 to 20. We have to be returning to another year of school or VSP. So if we're 20 years old, we can't be graduated and outside of any of those services. So that's that caveat. But through that age group, this is a really, really, really important program to get involved with. Of course, we have great programs, like I've mentioned prior, neighborhood experiences and other summer programs that younger students can get involved in. And I would definitely consider doing one of the leisure programs and then stepping over into the employment programs so we can focus on that employment piece. Other things that I've mentioned in previous Q&As and things that I'll bring back up. I know lots of people start their own entrepreneurial efforts, whether that is babysitting or mowing the lawn or shoveling snow. So really there's no set age that we can start working on skills. If we're doing any of those things and we want to start trying to get paid for that during summers or after school or whatever the case is at 14, 15, then that's totally doable. And I encourage that, of course. We're building that foundation of skills. But then too, once a person is 16, we're able to provide services through one of the summer programs. So really high school is a great time to start building those skills, start working on that work experience. That being said, there's also no time too late. We can work on skills, so if someone is graduated from high school and they've not yet had a job, they haven't volunteered anywhere, we can do that. We can start somewhere. It's always good if we have a little bit of that experience already getting through high school, but if not, we can start in one of those programs after high school too. Yeah.
So with the summer work experience, you mentioned that those programs are funded in St. Louis City or St. Louis County and St. Charles County. We do offer neighborhood experiences in the city for teenagers that want to have a volunteer or work experience in the city through our leisure department. What about Skills to Pay the Bills? Is that also funded through St. Louis County?
Yeah, so Skills to Pay the Bills is funded through the Productive Living Board and the Developmental Disabilities Resource Board. So St. Louis County and St. Charles County. Unfortunately, well, and I should say, pre-employment is funded that same way. So pre-employment does not have funding in St. Louis City, unfortunately, but we do cover the county of St. Louis and St. Charles County. So for folks living within that area, they can absolutely attend our skills classes. And in fact, we have people who are interested in our classes. And once we talk with them, they might even begin our classes while they're on our wait list for one of our programs, or while they're, a little bit before they begin our programs, they're able to attend these classes, especially now that it's virtual. There's a little bit more flexibility with that.
I'd like you to also share with the audience sort of that whole process of employment when people get past pre-employment or skip over that and they leave school. What are the different types of services we offer in supported employment?
Well, there are a lot of different pathways that can lead an individual to the coaching and retention team. The individual can go through pre-employment. The individual can start with meeting with vocational rehabilitation and coming through job development and discovery and exploration. And then one of our career consultants can help them find a job, which leads them to our doorstep, which is coaching and retention. So it really is individualized, and that's one of the biggest things that I love about our department is every service that we provide is individualized. So we look at each person that we support and their needs, and then we support them how they need to be supported. I am gonna give like a brief overview of coaching and retention as well. So when an individual first finds a job, we, Amanda is the other coordinator and me, will identify which coach will be the best to work with that individual. And we meet the coach meets them on the first day of work. And they will support that individual at 100% support for a varying amount of time, again, individualized. So it could be like 1 week, it could be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks, just depending on that individual's needs. And then we start fading our support. So our goal really is to promote independence. We are competitive, integrated employment. So we're providing we might provide visual tools, we might provide like social skills support. We may provide like help them with building their natural supports on site. It really just is so individualized. I can't list every strategy that we've ever used because it is individualized. And then once they're pretty much 100% successful, they don't have to be 100% successful or independent. But that's when we put them into our retention services. So those retention services actually can go on for the rest of the life of that job. So if they're in the job for 30 years, we can support them for 30 years. We're not going to be there every shift with them, but we can absolutely support them maybe like once a month or once every 2 weeks, once a week, whatever their support needs are. And our job coaches do a great job determining support needs based on their relationship with the individual, the families, the supervisors. Again, it's super individualized. So nothing is going to be the same with one person's support to the next. And then I'm going to backtrack and say why I think employment is so important. I think based on what Taylor said, she's exactly right. Like I don't know anybody that has started their first job and kept their first job their whole life. We're gonna, learn and grow from every opportunity that we have. And so one of the biggest things that I love about employment is that it empowers us. At every, employer, we're gonna get a different skill set. We're gonna get to learn from like different mentors, and there's just so much that we're empowered with, and we're able to empower on the individuals we support through employment. I would also say like connection is a huge thing. I'm not originally from St. Louis, so when I moved here, I didn't really know too many people, but I've been able to like make friends through work, and I think individuals are able to do that as well. And the list could go on, but those are just two of the biggest reasons why I think employment is so important.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that. I do think that, sometimes some of the folks we work with struggle to make friends. And I think exposure is so helpful for people to spend time with you every day on the job. They start to get you and understand what makes you cool to be around. And then the next thing you know, you are having lunch with somebody, or taking your dogs for a walk together, whatever it is that you might do. So that's a really, really great point. You kind of talked about social skills being something you can address on the job. What about transportation? What is our role in helping people navigate transportation to work?
So pre-employment does not provide transportation. We do ask that individuals have that set up in order to participate in our program. And that is so once we have spent that time training and preparing for a job, say we get a job, we're not taking 2 steps back having to find transportation. We want transportation to be set up so we're ready for success. That being said, we can help as far as brainstorming options, getting connected to Call a Ride, looking at whatever options there might be that are convenient and safe for that person, whether it's Uber, the bus, and so on. So we don't provide it for pre-employment, but we can assist in getting connected to options.
The other question they had was about whether or not you could help somebody try to get a promotion. And Sandy, I'm sure that as a job coach, there's all kinds of ways we help people learn to ask for things from their supervisor, learn to problem solve. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. One of my favorite strategies when I was an employment specialist was role playing. Like, I can be in a room with an individual and maybe they want a promotion. So maybe they pretend they're the supervisor and I pretend I'm the individual asking for promotion, and I can model that for them. And then we can flip, you know, positions. And then we can absolutely, like, that's that empowerment piece. So we can role play scenarios. And then the other thing is, like, we can also join for that conversation. So the biggest thing is we are advocates and we are resources. And so whatever problem that needs to be solved, we can come up with a solution. And I think the biggest thing is, like, if you are wanting a promotion, just sharing that with your job coach and making sure that they're aware of it. Because a lot of the times, like, if you're not happy with something and you don't vocalize it, they may not know because they're not there with you all the time, especially when you get into that retention phase.
Anytime you or if you're supporting a family member with a disability, anytime there is a need that you have to help you be successful in a funded service, that's when you can come to Family Navigation. So maybe Taylor and Sandy can't do all the background work to help you figure out the transportation part of the job. You can contact us in the Family Support Department and we'll work with you on some of those other pieces. Maybe you need to have a different social outlet, or you need to figure out the money and how it's going to affect your benefits on the back end. Those are places where you can come to our team and we'll provide you that support that you need so that you get all those questions answered. Somebody was asking if you had to go through a summer program as a teen to go through supported employment. And I just want to reiterate that you can pretty much come into the services at any point as long as you've got funding. Can one of you talk about how people get into our programs as far as eligibility?
Basically, all that you have to have is proof of a disability, and it can be an intellectual or developmental disability. And it can be a disability that came on before age 18 or that will continue throughout the lifespan. And then also for our retention services, individuals have to have two or more limitations with things like self-care, receptive and expressive language, self-direction, independent living, or mobility.
And we have to get access through the funders. So they have to have an open case with vocational rehabilitation. And that's another thing, again, that we can help direct you to.
Sharon, if I can just add something really quick. So lately we've had interest from individuals who receive med waiver funding. Unfortunately, with the way that our pre-employment training, especially the way that we are funded, we cannot support individuals that utilize and receive med waiver funding. So I would just like to share that because it's been a bummer lately. I think I've met with 3 or 4 families that have been in that situation. So,
and that's for the pre-employment, not for the supported employment, correct?
Correct. So,
Okay.
well, yes. So for pre-employment, especially, we are funded by PLB and DDRB, so that that puts us in a bind as far as that goes.
Would one of you talk just briefly about the other 2 parts of supported employment, discovery and exploration, and finding a job?
Tom Hudson is one of the other assistant directors, and he oversees the VR services piece, which is discovery and exploration and job development. As Sharon mentioned, there's many different avenues to get into employment services. There's no necessary prerequisite, so to speak. Sometimes people start out by contacting Voc Rehab, vocational rehabilitation, and they might be recommended that they do discovery and exploration, which typically this is about an 8-week process. Kind of depends though on depends on the timing. But through discovery and exploration, a person is working with a career consultant, and they will go into the community to check out a few different sites. And what the career consultant will do throughout this time is they will kind of assess their readiness and see how ready and realistic it would be for them to be successful and independent on a job, or if they are needing additional training in certain areas. So they will go out into several different kinds of sites. They like to look at a variety, so we can try to figure out what kind of environment would promote the most success. And over this time, as I mentioned, they're assessing, they're putting together their evaluations, and then they will make a determination by the end of the discovery and exploration process. And typically that career consultant will then make a recommendation for if they are ready for moving forward with a paid position, or if not, they might recommend pre-employment or another service to prepare before they get to that point. Through discovery and exploration, or you'll often hear D&E for short, if someone is recommended to move forward, they would pursue job development. Or often, sometimes folks will go to Voc Rehab and be recommended for directly into job development, where during this phase, they work one-on-one with a career consultant and sprucing up their resume, excuse me, prepping for interviews. So touching on that social skills piece that we all need, and then also actively applying for jobs within the community. So we've got somebody who is able to help through that process. The career consultants are able to attend interviews at times, so long as the employers will allow that person to be there. But we do tons of interview prep and applying together so we can find and secure a paid position.
And Sandy, we've got a question. If somebody's going to be graduating in May, whether it's from high school or college and is ready to enter the workforce, when should they engage Voc Rehab? What's a good timeline for them to be preparing for successful post-education employment?
The process does take a while, and I'm not sure, Taylor, do you know like how long it takes VR to set up an appointment with them?
It kind of depends on the timing. You know, VR can be swamped as far as lots of people are coming at the same time to try to open up their case. So to open up that case can take a few weeks, but once it's open, that process should work pretty smoothly.
And then if somebody is going to utilize the summer work programs while they're in school, does the school district assist with that process, or is that something the family can do at sophomore year, junior year? What's the age range for that? We didn't really talk about it.
Yeah, so for summer programs, for SWEP and STEP, but there's lots of acronyms. So SWEP and STEP are for individuals who are 16 to 20. So that might be someone's sophomore or junior year. Typically you receive an application from your teacher in the fall, and they typically go out in around November. It is really time sensitive and important that we receive those applications back by their deadline. So there's lead agencies for both programs. SWEP is led by MERS Goodwill and STEP is led by Easter Seals. So typically those applications are distributed through the teachers. They are completed by individuals and their families, and then they're returned to those teachers to get back to those lead agencies by February 1st. From there, those lead agencies disperse and divide students to partnering agencies, which we are a partnering agency in those programs.
So the question is, we've got support for people to get summer work experience, and we've got support after they graduate. What happens if I'm a senior and I want to work while I'm still in school? Does anybody help with that?
And I think also we received a question on our side that spoke about job coaching and placement for young adults age 21 to 26. So I think both of these questions are great for us to circle back to. I don't mean to be confusing. With summer programs at 16 to 20, any of our other employment services offerings are 18 and up. So typically we wait until a person is 18 to help as we move forward with a long-term position that's not just summer. And that's the way VR would like for that to be as well. And VR is that funder for the coaching supports. So typically it's a great time to start looking for long-term employment once you're 18. If you're ever in a situation where you're 17 and a half, you're approaching that, then maybe we can see if there's any way that we can support you. But typically our services are 18 and up.
Excellent. I will say to those of you that are thinking, I want to work while I'm in school, you cannot use a funded service through Voc Rehab, but this can be a great point to look at those entrepreneurial activities or look at jobs that are seasonal where they're providing you a fair amount of support, like a camp counseling or some other kind of situation where there's going to be a group that works together quite a bit, because I think that might help you to get the support you need. I do want to kind of clarify, Sandy, because I think there's a misunderstanding sometimes about what a coach does. You said the coach arrives the first day on the job. So we really can't expect the coach to be an expert in whatever the job the person gets. They're not there to teach the actual skills of working in that office or stocking the shelves in that store. Tell me a little more specifically, what do you expect from your coaches?
Essentially, they are learning the job side by side with the individual. So most employers will have training put in place already. So that individual is getting the same training that any other individual is getting that starts working there. But we just provide those extra resources or those extra, maybe a supervisor went over a task very quickly, and the coach can just make sure that the individual understands what the directions were, or how to complete that task. We do expect that our coaches are side by side with the individuals. They're engaged while on site, especially during that first week or during that training process. Some jobs that we assist individuals with obtaining, their training process could be pretty lengthy. So we do expect that the coach is engaged and that they're essentially providing resources to not only the individual, but the business partner as well, and advocating for the individual and just supplementing that training that's already there.
What if I don't want a coach to be next to me on the job? What if I think that kind of singles me out as a person with a disability and I don't want to have that experience? Are there other ways you can provide the service?
Because of COVID, we can provide offsite support. So we could provide virtual support. We could do Zoom calls and kind of go over maybe social skills. Maybe an individual understands all of the hard skills of their job, so they know those tasks that they need to do, but maybe they're having some challenges like interacting with coworkers during lunch. We can sit with them on a Zoom call and, again, role playing and role play those conversations and talk about like ways to build natural supports. And the list could go on and on. That's just one example. The other thing is, while an individual, like at first the coach is kind of learning side by side with the individual, eventually we're fading. So maybe after that first week, they've learned all of their tasks. The coach is going to step back, which I should say, the coach is never going to do the job for the individual. We might model, but we're not ever going to do the job for the individual that we're supporting. But the coach is going to step back as that individual gains independence, and they may be observing from 25 feet away and just seeing how that individual is handling the job tasks, how they're interacting. If they're working at a grocery store, how they're interacting with customers, how they're interacting with coworkers, and they just observe. I think that's another like big tool that our coaches use is observation, because we can see a lot. And then we can talk with the individual about what we observed and how they think that we could support them with what we observed and how we actually can support them.
I'm going to let you guys wrap up with your first jobs, or you can tell me your proudest moment in employment if there was a big success you want to share.
I can't choose one specific moment in employment that is exciting, because I think every day is exciting. It's never the same. So I'll share my first job. I'm the oldest of 13 cousins, so I babysat all my cousins growing up. And I think that led me to my teaching, which led me here. So I'm very thankful for that.
My first job, I I taught gymnastics. So I was a gymnastics coach. And I find there's irony or there's a connection that I end up being a job coach as well. So I think that was, although I had jobs in between, that was definitely, looking back, it makes sense, that I wound up as a job coach as well. And during my time as a job coach, one of the, many, many memorable moments, I supported somebody who was very hesitant to get a job or think about a job. This was through pre-employment. They were attending the local community college and they weren't sure how they were going to keep up with their classes while focusing on pre-employment. And so I will say this was probably almost 5 years ago. This person maintained their classes in school like very, very well. I can't remember what great things they did, but I remember it was some sort of honorable mention. But in addition, they got their driver's license and they are still employed at the site that they trained at in pre-employment. So in fact, I run into them frequently as it's a local store in the community. And I'm just really, really proud of that person and all the hesitations and reservations that they did have initially, that they were able to work through that and find successful independent employment.
Well, you can tell just by talking to you guys that you both really love your work and love helping people get jobs. Happy National Disability Employment Awareness Month. We did not talk about employment statistics, but they are not great. So we are here to help you have employment successes. We want people who want to have jobs to get those jobs. So reach out to us, talk to somebody in the family support team, check in with our employment staff. They are out and about all the time. And I hope that you will celebrate employment this month.